Good afternoon and welcome to a very special presentation from San Francisco Opera. I've been waiting for this moment for so long, the moment where we announce the return of opera to the Opera House after an absence of 18 months. So much has been leading up to this moment, building sets and costumes, developing safety protocols, piecing together a season that can work for our return, and most importantly, staying connected with you, our incredible audience. You've remained with us at every step of this journey. You've sustained the company through your generosity and your compassion. You've tuned into our weekend streams and other digital projects. You've shared in the exuberance of our live Barber of Seville. You've participated in our costume sale and in so many other ways have remained connected to us. So many of you have sent kind messages of support for the whole family of San Francisco Opera. Because of your generosity, we've been able to sustain so many members of the opera family, musicians, artists, crew members, and staff. While company members have made deep sacrifices this past year, you have enabled us to keep compensation and benefits as high as possible, and in a way quite unique around the world. On behalf of all of the company members, thank you for such extraordinary friendship to the company. You've also told us how excited you are to return to live opera in the Opera House. I was standing on stage just a day or so ago, looking out across our beautiful auditorium, replete with our brand new seats, and thinking about all of the stories still waiting to be told on that stage. All of that is now just around the corner. By the way, I should say that there is so much demand for the return of opera that you may be experiencing some delays with the website today. If so, please do call our very helpful box office at 415-864-3330 to purchase your tickets. That's 415-864-3330. Well, yes, we are returning, but we're returning with the beginning of a new chapter. At the moment, our new music director, Eun-Sun Kim, is making her way from Korea to San Francisco, where she will make her home. Because of her travels, she sadly cannot be with us today, but she sends you all her very best wishes. This is a monumental moment for San Francisco Opera. She is the fourth music director in our history, and I'm so excited for her tenure to begin. She has such a reverence for the company, for the audience, and for the power of music to connect us all, and I cannot wait for that first downbeat of her music directorship. Well, we have some very special guests joining us during the program, and I'll share some details about what we have artistically ahead, what will be a little different this year, and the protocols we have in place to keep you and our company members safe and secure. The first thing that I want to stress is that we're coming back at full strength. I'm still pinching myself that this is happening, but it is. It wasn't that long ago that we couldn't even have a singer and a pianist together in the same room in San Francisco. But so much has changed in the last month or so, which has enabled us to offer you a season of full-scale, full-length grand opera. It really is miraculous. Full orchestra, full chorus, world-class singers, beautiful scenery and costumes, all of the elements that make this the great company that it is. Working with our UCSF doctors, company members, union partners, and San Francisco's Department of Public Health, and with the extraordinary generosity that you give us, we're coming back at full strength and in some of the most beautiful works of the repertory. Well, we opened the season earlier than usual on August 21st with TOSCA. This is the first revival of our new production by Shauna Lucy, and it holds a very special place for us as our opening title. TOSCA opened the Opera House in 1932 as the first work on our stage. It was used to celebrate our 50th season, and it reopened the Opera House in 1997 after the shutdown for the Loma Prieta earthquake retrofit. The soaring melodies, dramatic incision, and propulsive storytelling make this a powerful way to mark our return. Eun-Sun will be on the podium, and we welcome new artists to the production. The fabulous soprano Eileen Perez, who will be making her role debut with us. Michael Fabiano, who has just taken on Cavaradossi for the first time at the Paris Opera, and Alfred Walker, whose artistry has been so impactful in Hansel and Gretel and Elektra on our stage. This will be a TOSCA that will reverberate long in the history books of San Francisco Opera. Well, this is a perfect moment to bring in our first special guests, and I'm thrilled to welcome to our program two of the stars of our first production back, Eileen Perez and Michael Fabiano. I'm particularly grateful to them for joining us today because they are calling in from Munich and Paris respectively, where the time is already past 1 a.m. But they are both riding high on the adrenaline rush of performances this very evening. Eileen and Michael, welcome to San Francisco Opera.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. We're so happy to be here.
So good to see you. Thank you for joining us at this very late hour. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am that you'll be bringing opera back to life for us in San Francisco. Well, Eileen, let me begin with you. And again, you just came off stage a couple of hours ago in Munich. What were you singing tonight? And what does it feel like to be making live music again?
Well, it's actually a signature role of La Traviata, Violetta Valeri, which actually my first Violetta was at San Francisco Opera on July 2nd, 2009. That's where I sang it for the first time in Italian. So my relationship with the San Francisco Opera Company, the patrons, the Merola program, it's just, you guys have always, you know, they say we left our heart in San Francisco, right? I sure did. So I'm really happy to be here tonight. There's so much that the whole industry has learned about dealing with COVID, and we're all vaccinated now. And so I'm so eager to inform you and to if you want to ask some questions about what it's like to sing in these venues and what it's like to be an opera singer in this time. But I certainly am I want to just say thankful that San Francisco Opera is ready to launch. I think the theater is one of the safest places for us to commune and gather again. And I think Michael and I have definitely had some experience during this pandemic. So we're here to answer some questions you may have, but we are very eager to get back to work, but also to let our audience and our opera lovers know that it's safe. We can have a very good, safe environment to be together again and just reunite in music.
I really appreciate you saying that, Eileen. And we will get to a question in a moment about what it's like to be singing in Europe at the moment, because I do want to ask you about that. And before we do, Michael, again, you have just come off the stage tonight in a very different city. You're in Paris at the moment in your first run of Cavaradossis. And we were just saying before we started the program today that you're getting a little bit of a head start on Eileen, because not only will you have Paris, you will also have Madrid for another run of TOSCAs, and then you'll come to San Francisco in quick succession here. What's it been like to take on Cavaradossi for the first time?
Well, first of all, Matthew, thank you for having me tonight. It's wonderful to see you, Eileen. And before I even answer your question, I just want to double down on what Eileen said, that I am aghast at the hard work that you have done, Matthew, in this crisis. You have been a beacon of light for so many artists around the world, and your generosity and care of all of us at this time, trust me, has meant a lot and has spoken volumes. And I know Eileen and I are in sync on this, as are most of my other colleagues. So thank you for your stewardship in this time of chaos and despair. Now, I want to just say that singing Cavaradossi is a nice segue. Has been a long time coming. I'm sure it's been asked of me many times in my career, and I declined it only because I always had this concept that the role was so histrionic and crazed. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that now doing it, I find him to be quite lyrical, pastoral, beautiful, and far less hysterical than I thought. And thanks to the San Francisco Opera, again, all of the Verdi repertory that I've sung in your theater as debuts prepared me very well for a role like Cavaradossi,
Mhm.
which is a little more center of gravity of the voice. It's a little lower in general. It needs a little bit more meat on the bones sometimes. But those Verdi canon roles really set me up well to sing something like this. And now it's going to be in the wheelhouse many times a season. I'm sure, it's a popular title. It's an easy work. So thanks again to the San Francisco Opera, your leadership, and the wonderful patrons that have supported so many of our performances. But I'm thrilled to be able to share this with our audience in San Francisco, and I can't wait to again be on the stage with Eileen, who is one of my most favorite stage animals and partners. Love you.
It's going to be extraordinary. And Eileen, again, Michael, maybe a couple of production runs of Tosca under his belt by the time he gets here. But for you, it means so much to me that you're taking on this for the first time here. As you say, you did Traviata here with us first, and now to be taking on Tosca here first. We love debuts. We love creating new roles with artists and hopefully creating a safe space in which someone can take on a role for the first time. As you prepare for this role of Tosca, what's exciting you most about this role?
I love that it's an acting role. Mm-hmm. I think that Tosca is one of the most, renowned divas of the diva roles. I think that for a very long time, lyric sopranos or dramatic sopranos wait a very long time to get to this role because you really need to know stagecraft. You have to have a powerful voice, but then also be an actress. It's a Sarah Bernhardt play. You have to be very clever because it's not, let's say this. Once you are on stage with Scarpia, and once you sing any role of Puccini's, as Michael and I, we just had a fabulous rondine in this pandemic, where I think our voices, having like a Latin type voices, we always have this meat and juicy part of our voice, but we must be so prudent about it because we're also stage animals. And Puccini decided to, score the opera with like every instrument on our same melody. So you have to be really, really clever. And you really need a great conductor and a great companion to put it all together and not lose it. But it's a sport of passion. It's everything about opera that you want, as a great role to perform. You need a theater whose acoustic is sublime, like the War Memorial Opera House is, where it can handle our piano singing as well as the most fullest, lyrical, almost Wagnerian type of sound. And we have that orchestra there. We have that legacy. We have the people in your audience and your patrons who are craving and who live for Italian opera at its height. We have them. So it's a great honor. And it's one that we all know comes with a historical legacy. I know Michael just mentioned the history of the people who sing Cavaradossi. And, part of that is, I can't imagine a better castmate than Michael. Michael and I go back to our AVA days in Philly, but I think that there's something really special about how our voices feel in Puccini's music. And I think with Maestro at the helm, it's just going to be a really spectacular time. And there's no better place. There's no better place for me to debut the role. So for Michael, I know you're going to tease me and show me ins and outs. But I love that about you. And he's a very generous colleague. He's very articulate about the score. And so as a musician, as a trusted friend, as a passionate lover of opera and such a great singer, I can't tell you, I could not have dreamed of a more perfect place. So thank
I
you
better
again
live
for
up
that.
to expectations then, Eileen. I
Oh,
better live
stop. You
up.
already have. I've been listening to Vittoria. Stop it. You're already above and beyond.
Well, I have to say that in the first act of this production by Sean and Lucy, there's a wonderful playfulness to it. You really feel the love of these two characters, and there's no artifice, as can sometimes be the case in that first act. You don't feel the sort of the diva in the room. You feel two people very much in love in the room, and so just thinking about how the two of you will play off on that, I'm so excited. And then we have a great jump for you, Eileen. A great jump. We save it to the very end, the very last chord.
That's the part I'm very afraid of. But let me tell you, with Sean and Lucy, we also go back. She's a brilliant stage director. She is so focused, and she knows exactly how to guide us. She knows how to keep us safe in the midst of all of the drama, which is, it can get a little bit crazy. So I'm very excited to reunite with her. I trust her with my life. I really do. And I'm so excited that she's directing.
Well, I think you will love the last moment. It's pretty extraordinary. Let me ask you both, and I promise then we'll let you get to bed. But I do want to ask you about what's it like to perform in Europe at the moment. As I mentioned in my remarks earlier, in San Francisco, we've gone from really nothing to full-scale opera. It's been quite extraordinary in this city. In Europe, there's been more back and forth. What is it like in the houses at the moment? Michael, let's begin in Paris.
Sure. So I want to step backwards just a little bit. I've had the privilege, and as has Eileen, I've had the privilege of working really somewhat in this crisis, unlike a lot of our other colleagues. I was working in Madrid last June through last October, and then Eileen and I met in Napoli to sing Rondine. And then I had 7 months where I was really not working that consistently until right now. You had
the first opera back in Traviata, right, in Madrid. It was like the first opera back in the world.
Yeah, it was. So the first thing we did was this Traviata. And so like Eileen started, and I want to double down on what she said, there have been different, scientists and doctors that have talked about the etymology of this virus, but at least in the country of Spain, where I have worked and I am working now, what we've learned is that cultural venues are among the safest places to cohabitate at this point. That's number one. And there are a myriad of studies that support it. Of course, there are alternative studies that don't say it. It's up to you to read the facts and the data. What the theater did in Madrid and what they're doing in Paris is what I expect you will be doing in San Francisco. Rigid amounts of testing and the use of masks in rehearsal spaces. The one thing that I found really interesting here was that they were really methodical in Madrid about making sure that tests were done every 48 hours. It was very, very consistent here. And there was very, very limited, if any, issues with the virus, even when it was at its peak. And so I've had the privilege of that. Now in Paris, they've had a little bit of different rules about when we get tested. We are tested the day before each performance, which is fine. I am vaccinated. That happened many months ago. The one thing I'll also add is that there has not been any social distancing in the theater here. Because we are tested and because we wear masks in rehearsals. The theory in the entire country of France, also in Spain, is that it's enough where the virality from colleague to colleague is not going to have an impact. And I have to say that I hope that that's where we are when we finally get on the stage at the Warmore, where we can be in some sort of contact with each other.
Oh, yes, we will be fully vaccinated on stage, and you guys can be in full embrace. So
okay, great. I'm thrilled about that. And so the one thing I want to add before Eileen jumps back in is thank you, Eileen, for those beautiful comments. Some of the most meaningful performances I've ever had in my life have been sharing the stage with Eileen. And there's something that transcends music with Eileen's voice. She said it in the beginning, which was that she has this Latin color. Yes, I have a Latin-ish sound, but I'm a sucker for the color of voice. I'm not a sucker for necessarily the most pristine technique. And Eileen has one of the most memorable voices I've ever witnessed in my life live. And so I always remain aghast at just the sheer beauty and the harmonics that are imbued in her sound. And it always inspires me to do my best, absolute best work when I'm with her, looking in her eyes, sharing the stage with her. So trust that when we are together on the stage, for you, Matthew, and for the public, that we're going to make sure that that house burns down by the end of the night. Okay?
They say a TOSCA to remember.
Yes.
Well, Eileen, tell us a little bit of just what's going on in Munich at the moment. How our audience is back to full capacity. Are you able to interact on stage?
He just made me blush. So, Michael, you know, I revere you. I love you so much, and I trust you. Trust is very important. Trusting ourselves, trusting each other, trusting our leadership. You know, Matthew, again, the leadership that you exude, it's reflected, then it trickles down through the company. And so part of working in Europe, what I've been able to experience is that the way the leaders lead and how they speak about how we're handling everything, really then it goes through the whole group of, as you know, the crew, the orchestra, the chorus, the soloists. We are there in waiting for the go ahead, you know, and we're on. We are full in, full on. And so that has been a really fundamental element in terms of how we've been able to work through this challenging time. As we're learning as we go along, I think that being vaccinated and having the masks has been hugely advantageous in terms of just creating the safe environment. And I just came off stage with the first time I've ever been as close to an Alfredo. I mean, it was like normal. And I know I'm COVID negative and I'm vaccinated, and it means the world. It means the world. And just to be able to have that kind of the human contact, of course, then gives us a harmonic presence. And no matter what live streams go out, there are studies that show the empathetic result of being live in a theater is just, you know, it's much more meaningful. We need that contact. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. I'm very thrilled that we're leading in this, and that's I think I'm just so thrilled that we're about to embark on this, that I can't remember if that's exactly the question that you asked.
Well, I will say that no, I mean, the resonance, you said it so beautifully, Eileen, the resonance of you both doing what you do on stage, us in the audience being a part of that. We're not just watching it, we're connected to it with energy, with heart, with just resonance. It's that's what it's about.
And
Please.
let me say one more aspect of all of this. I think that the stress on everyone is the fear. For me, it was very challenging to deal with the fear. But now, a year and a half later, we just have so much more information that's going to help us through this. I think also my hope is that the mortality rate is going to be severely diminished, that the variants are going to be less aggressive. But really, the theaters have done such incredible work in I agree with Michael. I think maybe it's a peace of mind. If getting swabbed every other day provides that comfort and safety, I'm there for it. I think every musician, every singer, every director, I think we're all there for it. I think we're just we want to do everything possible to dispel the fears and to welcome back our way of being connected. And I certainly think that music and art and this kind of connection and the harmonics of what is felt in live theater is necessary to the well-being of not only ourselves health-wise, but to our audience and the impact in our communities. Absolutely adamant about it.
It is time for that. We need it more than ever.
It's time.
We need it more than ever. Well, I think you will be pleased with the protocols when you get here. Things have moved in incredible, wonderful directions. We'll talk about that a little more in the program here. But again, I just can't thank you both enough for, first of all, being with us tonight and staying up so late to be with us after your performances tonight live in Paris and Munich. But also, thank you for helping us open the 99th season of San Francisco Opera. We can't wait for you both to be on our stage once again and to be sharing your artistry with us in our first production back on stage. So sleep well, enjoy the remainder of your performances, and we are so excited to see both of you very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
God bless you all. It's such an honor. Thank you so much.
Great to be with everybody
Good night.
here. Can't wait to be back in the Bay Area. Sending love.
Very soon. Very soon. Well, while we open with TOSCA this year, September 10th would have been the traditional opening night of the season. Well, it's just a little too soon for a full-blown gala for 800 people, but we will be making a very special night of this. We have one night only concert bringing back some of the magical energy that we experienced in Rusalka back in 2019. And we welcome back Rachel Willis-Sorensen and Jamie Barton for a beautiful concert with Unsun Kim and the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. It will begin at 7 p.m. and it will conclude with a celebratory dinner in the Veterans Building. Tickets for the concert are now on sale and dinner tickets will be available in July. But that's not all. One of the great traditions of opening weekend of the opera is the combination of the glamour of the in-house opening and the fabulous energy of the free opera in the park. Again, it's just a little too soon to be bringing back opera in Golden Gate Park. But I'm thrilled to announce that our concert on September 10th will be simulcast to Oracle Park, continuing that fantastic tradition of opera at the ballpark. With the fixed seating and controlled entry and exit points at the ballpark, we're able to accommodate a large outdoor crowd in a way we just can't yet at Golden Gate Park. It's going to be so meaningful to have arts and sports joined together in what's become a time-honored San Francisco event. And I'm so grateful to our friends at the Giants for making this possible and allowing us to welcome the community to celebrate the return of the opera. Please be assured, though, that the beloved tradition of opera at Golden Gate Park will be back next year. Well, our next opera this fall will be particularly important for our return, Beethoven's Fidelio. It's hard to imagine a more relevant opera for this moment in time. Not only does Matthew Ozawa's insightful new production shine a spotlight on the huge global challenge of political detention, but the piece itself will allow each of us to connect with the bright light of liberation after the long winter of isolation. Fidelio has long been used to mark moments of freedom, and I'm imagining how it will feel for all of us to experience the prisoners' chorus as they are let out to feel the warm rays of sunlight and the glimpse of what freedom feels like. This will also be musically spectacular. Unsun Kim will be on the podium, and we welcome back South African soprano Elza van den Heever, who was an Adler with us in 2006 and 2007, and who makes a long-awaited return as Leonora. Russell Thomas, with us for Roberto Devereux and Norma, is our Florestan, and Greer Grimsley, our Wotan, in the 2018 Ring Cycle, is our Don Pizarro. As we think about finding catharsis, resonance, and meaning in the Opera House, this Fidelio will provide an extraordinary artistic response to where we have been as a society and where we're heading. While talking of societal journeys, I'm thrilled that our 99th season will see the continuation and the culmination of our Mozart da Ponte trilogy, the project that we started in 2019 with such a successful Marriage of Figaro. This fall, we fast forward 150 years from our 18th century manor house to the 1930s for COSI fan tutte as America finds itself at a crossroads, a place of ambiguity between the Great Depression and the Second World War. Well, as with society, so too do our lovers face a burning question. How firm is their resolve? How secure their commitments? Our cast see some important returns to the opera. Nicole Cabell, who was with us for Capuletti and Traviata. The great Italian bass Ferruccio Furlanetto, last with us for Don Carlo. Also returning are Irene Roberts, last in Dream of the Red Chamber, Nicole Heaston, our Countess in Figaro, John Brancy, who was with us in Billy Budd, and the debut of American tenor Ben Bliss, who has wowed New York audiences with his Ferrandos at the Met. All of this will be under the baton of Hungarian conductor Henrik Nanashi, who gave us such a nuanced Figaro, as well as the powerhouse Elektra. Talking of Elektra, I just want to mention the latest group of streaming titles that we just announced. Through the course of July, you can see Yennefer, Les Troyens, Elektra, and Louisa Miller on our weekend streaming platform. And if you're a donor of $75 or more, you can access these performances archivally until we return to main stage performances. These are some of the most memorable moments from our stage in recent years, and I hope that you'll revisit them. More information is on our website, sfopera.com, streaming. Anyway, back to the Mozart da Ponte trilogy. We just talked about Cosi fan tutte. Now let's move to the third and the final installment. The journey through American society comes to a crashing denouement with Don Giovanni next June, as the bonds of society are pulled to breaking point. The great manor house is still at the core of the drama, but it's now crumbled, decayed, and a shadow of its former self. The Don holds court in what is now a make-do shelter, finding power through the control of what meager resources remain after some kind of cataclysmic event. When we conceived of the trilogy, the Giovanni was set in a rough 2090 time period, and it seemed like this post-apocalyptic event was far out of our imagination. Well, all of that timeline now just fast-forwarded in the last year, and we will understand this journey through time much more acutely than we could ever have imagined. And what a cast we have for this. Two important debuts for the company, Canadian baritone Etienne Dupuis as Giovanni, and Romanian soprano Adela Zaharia as Donna Anna, two singers that we're so happy to introduce to you. Then the return of Carmen Ginnattasio at TOSCA from 2018 as Donna Elvira. The beloved Luca Pizzarone is our Leporello, and Christina Ganch is our Zerlina, returning after a show-stealing role as the nurse Dorinda in Handel's Orlando. Solomon Howard is our Commendatore. All of this is under the baton of a very important conducting debut for the company, the incredibly finessed French maestro Bertrand de Billy. Well, we'll return to the Mozart da Ponte trilogy in a few minutes for a conversation with director Michael Kavanagh. But also in June next year is a very important return work, Bright Shung and David Henry Huang's Dream of the Red Chamber. We premiered the work in 2016, and it was a huge success, one of the most successful works of the last 5 years on our stage. As you may recall, it adapts one of the great Chinese novels, as iconic in China as Shakespeare is in England, telling the story of an intractable love triangle occurring amidst the political ambitions and warmongering of imperial China. Since we premiered the work in San Francisco, it went on to play in 3 Chinese cities, as well as in Hong Kong, all to great acclaim. It comes back to San Francisco Opera with some returning cast members and some new cast members, including Megwei Zhang, the young soprano who wowed audiences as Anne Trulove in Merilla in 2018, and who returns for her main stage debut. Tenor Yiji Shi returns as the conflicted young man, Bao Yu, and Chinese mezzo Honyi Wu is our new Bao Chai, the other element of the love triangle. Well, also next summer, we have another special concert for you, a gala celebration of Unsun Kim in a concert of Verdi works with the opera orchestra and chorus, and a number of fabulous singers, returning Mexican tenor Arturo Chacon Cruz, winner of the Manetti Shrem Emerging Stars Award, debuting Australian soprano Nicole Carr, and returning American bass Solomon Howard. As with the concert this September, this will feature our brand new orchestra shell, built in our Burlingame scene shop during the pandemic. Well, talking of our scene shop, one of the really important notes about our 99th season is that everything you will see on the stage has been built here in the Bay Area by our very own craftspeople, the amazing talents that make up San Francisco Opera. At a time when it has been so hard for people in the arts to sustain employment, it's very meaningful to me that our season is entirely locally built, celebrating the skills and the talents of craftspeople, artisans and technicians, as well as musicians and artists. This is the community of excellence that is San Francisco Opera. This is your opera company, and you as a community have done so much to sustain it this past year. In addition to the main stage programming next season, the innovative drive that was so vital during the pandemic continues into our 99th season. We'll have more episodes of the very successful In Song series, with new episodes featuring Jamie Barton and 15-time Grammy Award winner banjo player Bela Fleck, and then Arturo Chacon Cruz, the music of mariachi, and then an episode with Amina Edris shot on location in Cairo. We also launch a festival of atrium sessions, short expressions of song filmed in the Toby Atrium Theater here on campus, which we'll be sharing on our website in September, and our podcast series, North Stage Door, continuing. And then we're adding a new feature for the season, live streams of opera from the stage directly to you in case you're not able to get to the Opera House. Thanks to a gift from Tad and Diane Toby, we've been able to revitalize the media suite and once again bring you extraordinary productions from the stage right to your home. Well, as I mentioned at the start, safety is absolutely paramount for us this season. We want to ensure that you, our audience, and all of our company members are coming into an environment that is safe, secure, and welcoming. That was very much the case in Marin, where we had not a single positive test through our whole production. We continue to meet every week with a group of doctors from UCSF, led by Dr. George Rutherford, refining protocols, addressing specific situations, and assessing every aspect of the business, backstage and front of house. Well, I'll talk a little bit to some of those changes in a moment, but first it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. George Rutherford back to our town halls. Dr. Rutherford is Professor of Epidemiology and Director of the Prevention and Public Health Group at UCSF, and he and his colleagues have been working with us every single week since July 2020 to help the opera move through the pandemic with safety and creativity. Dr. Rutherford was with us for a town hall last August, and a huge amount has happened since that time. So we thought it'd be timely to check back with him as we announce our season today. Dr. Rutherford, welcome back to our town halls.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I can't tell you what an extraordinary experience this has been for my colleagues and me. I mean, some of us have been a little closer to this world than others. I frankly was a little bit more, I had a little bit greater understanding of what the Warriors were doing in the San Francisco Opera, but you know, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much for your willingness to engage. I don't know if people know this, but we have a couple of surgeons on this little group, Dr. Sanziana Roman, who's a head of endocrine surgery at UCSF, and Dr. Clark Rosen, who's the head of laryngeal surgery at UCSF. And so we have to do surgeon's hours. So we meet every Monday at 7, which I thought was getting these guys up at 7. I thought might be a bit of a sweat, but they're right there, and they're more pulled together than we do. I can tell you every Monday morning.
It's a great way to start the week. It really is. And I'm just curious, as you've had this immersion course into the deep inner workings of opera, George, what are some of the quirkiest things that you've feel like you've dealt with over the course of the last year?
It's kind of to find out that the fly rail operator is the most important person in the whole building. I didn't even know what a fly rail was, but I get it. But it was just the nooks and crannies of that building, built in 1932 or finished in 1932 or 33. And then we can't find any plans for it to show how the ventilation system works. And it was an interesting challenge. And one of my colleagues, Dr. Robert Harrison, who's an occupational medicine, we would come from trying to discuss problems with the Hormel meatpacking line to come and talk to Matthew and Eric Wallstad, and it was sort of a difference, kind of a little bit of a different tenor to the conversations. But I think we have the protocols in place that are going to make this the safest place on earth. And I'm really gratified that we've been able to help.
Well, talking of the protocols, we submitted recently our detailed protocols to Dr. Susan Phillip, the San Francisco Public Health Officer, and she approved them. And many of those were actually based on some of the things we had developed with you all for the Barbara of Seville and Marin, and then modifying those as we bring in 100% vaccination requirement. But opera is such a high aerosol generating activity. It was one of the first things that really had to shut down, of course, last year. But with this vaccinated protocol we're coming back with a zone system, depending on how close you are to those aerosols, continued testing, how safe would you say that the performance side of this is going to be for our artists and musicians and crew members and so forth?
Extraordinarily safe. It's going to be, you know, I mean, I can't imagine that there'd be a breakdown, even with these new variants circulating that are much more transmissible. I mean, you've really done everything you can, especially getting people vaccinated. That's far and away the most important thing. And when we first started to design this, we didn't really have that as an option.
Right.
And weren't clear when exactly that would happen, or that it would be nearly as, you know, wildly successful as it's been. So I think that really allowed us to deal with sort of smaller nuances of other things.
Right.
You know, but the vaccines are extraordinarily effective. And if anybody in the audience hasn't gotten vaccinated yet, I would encourage you to go get vaccinated if you're 12 years old or older.
Absolutely. Well, let's move to the other side of the curtain for a moment, George. And we're joined today by hundreds of audience members eager to get back into the Opera House. And I imagine there are many questions about how safe it is to congregate in an indoor venue again, like the Opera House, in which we can have up to 3,000 people. I just wondered if you could share some thoughts on how San Francisco is faring in terms of infection rates, vaccination rates, and the viability of congregating once again in a venue like this.
I think that San Francisco is doing great. We've, you know, we really haven't had the stress tests of the Warriors games, which are indoor, but we have had stress tests of the Giants games with no transmissions. And I think that we're in good shape. San Francisco is probably the second best county in the United States for vaccination. The best is Marin, by the way. Quite surprisingly so, as a pediatrician who has to put up with a lot of vaccine issues in Marin. But everybody got the message here, and Marin has about 90% of its entire population, not just adults, not just eligibles, of the entire population vaccinated. It's really an extraordinary time. So I think that we can really rely on vaccination as the primary means for disease control, and make the as you say, the front of the house as absolutely safe as possible.
That's wonderful.
And I certainly intend to freeload and come and see some of the action too. So
you have a lifetime pass, I think, George. It's what you've done for us.
I'll have to dust off my tails.
Well, talking of Marin, as I say, you and your colleagues were instrumental to getting us to a place where we could produce live opera again with that amazing Barbara of Seville that we did outside of Marin. And you were able to join us for one of the performances. And I just wondered what it felt like to see this 40-page protocol document transform into live opera.
Yeah, and that and the stage from Coachella. I mean, that was the kicker of the whole thing. The most difficult part about that was the orchestra, and how to get the orchestra situated in a way that, if as aerosols were generated, they would be vented, and you know, this was in the very early days of mass vaccination. So I thought it was terrific. My wife and I keep talking about it, and so yeah, it was amazing. So, and it felt amazingly safe. But then again, we were sitting in our cars and honking horns and flashing lights, so you know, which I know we weren't supposed to do, but. I've lost your sound feed, Matthew. Now, this didn't happen in Marin, I will point out to everyone. So. Well, I'll tap dance around to this a little bit. So I hope everybody in the audience had a chance to see the Barbara of Seville, the new slimmed down version of Barbara of Seville, which was not only 90 minutes, but it was also all in English. So it made it sort of more approachable for the casual observer like I.
It was amazing. Well, apologies for my sound there. Even back in live, technical difficulties can happen. Let me just ask you, George, last question. You've been so generous working with the opera, but you've also been working, as you say, with the Warriors and a number of other industries over the course of this pandemic. I'm not sure that you've actually slept at all in the last year, but you've given such amazing guidance to the city in so many ways. What's the last year been like for you? Do you see things for yourself now easing up and returning to normalcy, or are you getting pulled now into other parts of the country, other parts of the world?
No, it's easing up a little bit. It's kind of yet to catch up with us. We're writing, this is what you do when you're in academic medicine. We're, of course, writing grants like crazy to try and help with the COVID response around the world. We have a big network, because we really do international health, global health. We have a big network of partner institutions all over the world that we're going to be working with. And we're doing COVID surveys right now in Luanda and Angola and in Nairobi. So, I mean, that sounds pretty exotic, but for me, it's the sort of stuff I have to do on a daily basis. I can tell you how to get to Luanda on a plane. So I think that world's going to come back, rushing back at me pretty quickly. But we have an extraordinarily adept and competent, just frankly brilliant group that works with us. And I don't know if you know this, but most of the group that I work with were diverted to do the contact tracing for San Francisco and also for most of California.
Oh, really?
So everybody's been out in the field, earning their keep.
Well, it's extraordinary that amidst all of this and all that you're doing, that you have spent so much time with the opera. Dr. Rutherford, thank you for your support. Thank you for your wisdom and all of your partnership this last year.
Right. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mark Almond, Dr. Mark Almond.
Absolutely.
Who's the fifth member of the Petroika, Pentroika, whatever the Greek is. Who's also is the principal French horn for the symphony. Is that correct?
He was with us as our co-principal French horn. He is moving over to the street now at the symphony and just playing last Friday night, actually. But no, he's been a great member of the team.
And between him and Dr. Roman, we actually have insiders who actually know what we're supposed to be doing, but it's all supposed to look like at the end. So.
It's an amazing team, and it continues to be an amazing team. We just met together yesterday morning, and you're keeping going with us until that curtain comes up. So on behalf of the entire opera family, employees and audience members alike, I just want to say thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. It's been a great pleasure.
You've just guided us in this most amazing way. You're allowing us to get back safely, and I cannot wait to share in this live performance with you. Thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a million.
Well, let's talk a little now about these safety measures and how those are being manifest this fall. As we've just heard, things are moving, things are very fluid, so this reflects where we are at the moment. We'll keep working closely with our doctors and keep you informed as things change, as and when we feel we're able to loosen some of these provisions in a safe way. As I'm sure you've noticed, we have fewer operas this season, and they begin earlier, as I said, in late August. It was very important to us to play operas one at a time this fall, rather than being in repertory. So we both have fewer operas, and we've elongated the season to make that possible. That allows us to isolate each cast and each physical production to maximize our safety protocols backstage. We'll be back to full strength next season with a full number of productions, a regular opening night, opera in the park, and much, much more. Let's talk a little bit about seating, and again, those amazing new seats we have. And I wanted to mention that we're not issuing specific seats just yet. Rather, you will buy a ticket to a specific section. This is very similar to how we work for the Ring Cycle. As we get closer to each production, we'll assign specific seat locations and share those with you. Our goals are to keep you safe and to get you seats as close to your regular subscription locations as possible. We don't want to lock in a specific seating plan that will be too restrictive now while things are in such flux. We want to remain flexible in how we seat the house. But I do want to assure you that your subscription series and your seat locations from the 2019-20 season will be held for you for our 22-23 season. So please don't worry that you will lose those. This is very much a temporary approach. At the present time, our front of house protocols for TOSCA assumed continued mask wearing, vaccination or testing verification, and the use of a buffer seat between each party. We're working to balance recommendations from our medical team, a strongly expressed desire for heightened safety from patron surveys, and the gradual easing of restrictions around the city and the state. We'll continue to evaluate our safety protocols as we move through the fall, and we encourage you to check the safety information on our website for the latest updates. We'll continue to work with our UCF doctors, understand the safety concerns of our patrons, and keep adjusting to make this very best and safest experience possible for you. If you have any questions about safety, please call our box office and they'll be very happy to talk through our protocols with you. Your safety is of paramount importance to us, and we want to come back to the Opera House in a way that you feel will be comfortable attending. Well, we've talked about the season, some of the digital work that we'll be continuing and adding, and how we're keeping the company and you, our audience, safe during this time. I'm now very happy to welcome to the town hall our fourth guest, the director of our Mozart da Ponte trilogy. As we've discussed, this forms a major part of our 99th season, picking up on the hugely successful Figaro from 2019 and continuing forward in this setting that takes us through a huge arc of American history, from the founding of the country all the way into a dystopian future. Since we last talked to Michael Kavanagh, he's been appointed the artistic director of the Royal Swedish Opera in Stockholm, an incredibly prestigious appointment, and we're catching him just before he makes his move there. Michael, welcome to the town hall.
Hi, Matthew, fantastic. I'm having a little, here we go.
There you go.
The video. There's my video. I need Dr. George Rutherford to step in and help me out here with, with my technical difficulties. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see everyone. I'm just absolutely delighted to be part of this town hall. And of course, part of your incredible comeback season. And I'm just thrilled to be rejoining the San Francisco Opera family.
It's so good to see you. And before we delve into our Mozart trilogy, I have to ask you, how's the Swedish coming along?
Inte dålig, tack så mycket, which I think means not so bad, thanks very much.
Excellent. I'm impressed.
I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, and I'm working at varje dag, every day. And, you know, when you're at a certain age and you take on a new challenge like a new language, I pine for an extra amount to be 14 again and or actually even younger, to be, you know, your brain's like a sponge at that age. And so
you're saying, why didn't my parents allow me to learn Swedish at age
exactly
14?
It would have come in so handy. But it's a wonderful part of the world. If you've never been, and any of our viewers here have never been, it's just a wonderful culture and a wonderful place, and so supportive, and they've got this wonderful generosity of spirit and this incredible breadth and depth of love for the art, for our art form, for all of the arts, and our art form in particular. So it's just, I'm very humbled and grateful and appreciative of being given the opportunity to help us write the next chapter there. På svenska.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do there. I mean, it's so interesting to be beginning as an artistic director in a company in this post-pandemic future. Do you have any kind of glimpses as to what directions you'll take and how all of this kind of reopening might inflect that?
Well, sure, and I have lots. As a matter of fact, my issue is probably I have too many ideas and options and plans. But I think that's a good thing. We've had to be nimble, all of us, right? This idea of being in flux in terms of this, especially these shoulder season, if we want to call it that, or maybe two, who knows, season and a half of transition from that to whatever we are all going to choose together to define as our new normal. Right? We know there's no going back to what it was, but that's also a very exciting opportunity if you choose to frame it that way. If you choose to look it through a lens of opportunity, to reassess what this art form means to us, how we tell our stories, how we best share our storytelling selves, right? And what it means to give voice, literally, to all of these incredible complex feelings and emotions and stories that we've all been sharing together.
Well, I'm curious to talk a little bit as we move into the Mozart da Ponte's and the two we have coming up this season, the COSI and the Giovanni, and just to think a little bit about how the opportunity of the change of this schedule may affect things. There was originally supposed to be an 18-month gap between the COSI from last fall into the Giovanni which was always scheduled to be in June 22. Now we have just 6 months. How do you think that will affect how we, the audience, perceive that journey differently?
oh, it's going to foreshorten things and it's going to heighten the contrast between these pieces. I think it's going to make we're trying to tell these stories in their own way and connect them with this story arc of bigger and greater meaning for us all. And when we put them so close together, the real challenge is to remind people where we were in Figaro, Marriage Figaro, actually. And because there has been so much going on in between then and now, so there's our real challenge is in restarting the story for ourselves. Not the story, but the setting of it and the big thematic threads that we're trying to weave through this entire thing, because it is a story of stories, where this trilogy has been put together. It was never intended to be presented this way, and so we are focusing on the thematic material to connect them, as opposed to the through this metaphor of the big manor house, of course, and what it represents for us, as opposed to the characters and the actual narratives. So once I think that challenge is well in hand, we've been discussing those specifics already, and then to have Giovanni so hard on the COSI's heels, I think is going to, and they're so different, the pieces are so different, still sharing, again, that same thematic DNA, that I think it's going to be really impactful, even more so. It's going to amplify these already heightened emotions in the contrast of these stories.
Yeah, as I was saying, like with the Giovanni, when we talked about that, it was this sort of far off, just it was like, how far away can we push it? So it's really in this kind of future that we can't quite touch, but and now suddenly we're touching that future. It's through so many reasons, right?
Right. It came to find us. We didn't have to, it's, I heard you describe it earlier, this unknown cataclysmic event, right? For a lot of people, for so many people all around the world, and still actually, we are undergoing that cataclysm. It's certainly in our worldview and what we consider, to be secure in terms of how things unfold for ourselves, as well as actual impact on people's lives. And so this is something that we never take lightly, and Giovanni deals with it by happenstance, head on. It deals with consequences of our actions, and this is why it's just so important that Giovanni, it's the finality of these themes, the finality of the story, and the finality of consequence for all of us, and that's what we're all dealing with now. We're continuing to deal with now because of the consequences of our actions right in this very moment.
Well, and I think as you and I have spent a long time talking about the ending of Giovanni, and is it a full stop? Is it a question mark? Is it an ellipsis? How does this piece end? And I don't know if you want to say anything about that now, if you want to leave that as a question mark for the audience and for next June.
I hope it will remain a question mark, because this is something, I've never been one to spoon feed, this is what this opera means to people, right? Our job is not to answer all the questions, but is to pose the right ones, right?
Right.
Not to provide all the answers. And that would be, arrogant in the extreme. And there's just so much going on. And for every 10 people that receive these wonderful, incredible pieces, not just in this trilogy, but through your whole season and the whole literature of our art form, you will have 10 different responses and reactions to it. But what I can say, of course, is that Giovanni ends with this epilogue. We all know this, and sometimes it's cut, but and it always has been a sense of restarting, a sense of resetting. And a re-beginning, a rebirth, a renaissance, all the things. And in this case, of course, we want to make reference to the entire arc of all three of these pieces. And when we say reset, there's so much talk about reset right now. It could not be more pertinent and relevant to what our world is going through right now. And the big reverberating message of this whole reset idea for us as a species, as human beings, is that there is no going back. We must look forward, and we can't just recreate what was. We need to accept our transformation, because we have been transformed. We cannot fight it. We have to accept it. We have to face it head on, and we have to create for ourselves a new reality based on everything we've gone through. And am I talking about the world around us or Don Giovanni's epilogue? I'm not sure, right? So come to the show and join us all in the querying.
an amazing reflection on where we are as society. Let me just ask you briefly, Michael, let's just talk about the physical production. And as we've talked about, the Manor House is this shared through line from Figaro to COSI to Don Giovanni, the constant amidst this shifting society here. But there are new elements that come into play, and some of those we've built in our scene shop already for COSI. Others we're now beginning to build in Giovanni. Any hints for our audience as to what new elements they might see as this house makes its journey?
Well, sure. It's again the whole sense of this trilogy is beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, and the Figaro is all about the construction of it, and COSI, as you will see, this place has been repurposed as a country club, as this sort of the peak experience for the rich and restless, right? And in a not a funny coincidence, but an eerie coincidence, I suppose, this kind of peak time in American history was a brief semi-generation after the last pandemic, right? We're talking about setting this piece in the 30s after those roaring 20s, which of course roared because of the reaction to the so-called Spanish flu, right? The last great pandemic. And so, of course, everything will be presented in this manor house at its, height, at the zenith, right? And because it's a zenith, we don't know where, whither goes it. And of course, Giovanni is all about the ending. So we are looking at about the deterioration, the destruction, and the consequences of some really horrendous missteps by us as human beings as we deal with each other and our responsibilities to each other.
Absolutely. And I also just want to say a moment, just as the costumes for the Giovanni are really quite incredible, because in this sort of dystopian future, and you're pulling in Constance Hoffman, our costume designer, pulling all of these different elements and themes, and again, this dystopian world of found objects.
Yes, exactly, and repurposed objects and recycled objects, and very few members of the society still have any sort of plenty, right? Everyone else, there's much scavenging going on, and people are having to find and use and repurpose and recycle. And that actually, speaks to sort of an environmental situation, which I don't want to bring you down at the end of your town hall meeting, but that's going to be the next thing we all deal with in terms of big consequence of global action and what sort of action we're going to take. And I should say, all of the members of my creative team, which I'm so grateful to have. Jane Cox, our wonderful lighting designer, and of course Erhard Rome, so well known to your audiences.
Asset designer.
As the scenic designer, and of course Constance Hoffman, fantastic. I'm just so grateful to be informed by them and to share our ideas and to collaborate with such an incredibly creative and generous group of people. Amazing.
Well, as we just scratched the surface of it here, Michael, I mean, just so much that we will be holding up a mirror between society and art. I mean, that's what the opera stage does so well. And I just love how that is finding a voice in this trilogy. And so I'm thrilled that it is part of our season, two parts of our season in COSI and Don Giovanni. I'm just so thrilled to be working with you this coming year and to be on this journey together. And I'm glad we could take a little time before you head off to Stockholm. I know you'll be back soon for COSI rehearsals, so we will see each other in person very soon. But we wish you every success, every happiness as you begin your new life in Stockholm. Thank you so much for being with us, Michael. I really appreciate it.
And thank you right in return for everything you're doing for our art form and for this company. It's incredible. The communities. Thank you so very much. It's my pleasure.
We'll see you very soon.
We'll see you very soon.
Take care, Michael.
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Hey, do.
Well, there are so many other topics that we could talk about today, but sadly, we have come to the end of our time for this town hall. We've packed in so much content today that unfortunately we didn't have time for questions, but please never hesitate to email me directly at matthew@sfopera.com. That's matthew@sfopera.com with any questions that you'd like answered, or if you have comments or reflections about what we've announced today. And as I mentioned, given the huge demand for tickets today, if you are having problems getting onto the website, please do call our box office and they will be able to help you out with sales. Well, there is so much that I'm excited about as we head into our 99th season. The beginning of Unsun Kim's tenure, having 3 new productions on our stage, the beginning of live streaming from the stage, our continued digital work, a simulcast with the Giants, and spectacular artists joining our extraordinary company members. And at the core of all this is my excitement to be back in the Opera House with you all. You allow us to bring this kind of excellence to the stage, and we bring it to the stage for you. Your loyalty and your devotion to the company through the pandemic has been extraordinary, and all of us in the company cannot wait to raise the gold curtain and to be back in that magical space where the stage, the pit, and the audience join together in a beautiful symbiosis. Live opera taking us all together to places of incredible beauty and depth. If there's one thing that the pandemic has illuminated, it's that we're all in this together. That is particularly the case in the Opera House. Hundreds of artists and technicians and thousands of audience members join together in the creation of extraordinary works that may be ephemeral in the moment, but that remain in our minds for a lifetime. That is the power of opera, and that is what is ahead of us just 2 months from now. I hope that you'll be inspired to resubscribe and to be with us for every note of live music this year. We have a lot of lost time to make up, and I don't want you to miss a second of it. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for all that you have done and that you continue to do as we turn to the next chapter of the spectacular artistic journey of San Francisco Opera. I look forward to greeting you in person at the Opera House very, very soon. Take care and goodbye.